Hi guys, and welcome to another episode. Today we're going to be looking at the uses and gratifications theory, a very well-known and widely used theory in media, especially again in relation to audiences. Blumler and Katz are the authors of this theory, and they are two gentlemen who put together the idea that audiences are no longer passive. And since the 1920s, audiences simply don't just follow and do what the media tells them. Actually, now audiences have needs and they seek out and particularly choose certain media to fulfill the requirements they have. Uses, of course, refers to how the media is used and why, what's its purpose to the audience. And gratification refers to the word gratify, meaning pleasure. How do we get pleasure from media products? For example, this week you might have watched, listened to, clicked on and enjoyed certain media over others. You made decisions about what you would and wouldn't spend your time on when browsing Netflix, choosing online games to play, or which TV shows to consider checking out next week or whatever. Blumler and Katz argue that we have four needs, the four reasons, if you will, we choose certain media over others. We call it preference, but they evaluated it as having a deeper sense and a deeper reason for our choice. And here are those four, and a good acronym to remember: ICE. I-C-I-E. Firstly, they said because of information. We would watch or consume a certain media text because we learn something. It has educational value or we gain knowledge from it. I'd give the example that the news is exactly that. And a lot of us turn on the news, particularly parents, dad coming home from work at 6 p.m, kind of tea time-ish, because of other content, because they want to be informed. What's happened today? What's the weather doing tomorrow? They want that education, that knowledge. Another great text example are documentaries. And no doubt you've watched or heard of the very famous Planet Earth or Blue Planet series with David Attenborough as narrator. These types of shows are very educational, and they often include specific facts about the animals or their habitats around the world. The audience certainly recognizes they watch these types of shows to improve their knowledge. Great for pub quizzes. But again, they're packed full of knowledge, facts, so again, they have a sense of information. That's what they provide the audience. The second reason Blumler and Katz argued that we choose certain media over others is for the sense of companionship. Now, this is a little bit more deeper than simply wanting to learn, like information, but it has the sense of we choose certain media because we simply perhaps seek comfort from the media. There is a sense of belonging to that show or a feel-good factor. It exists and you and I can kind of experience it. How often have you genuinely been sad, upset that a show is finishing and there isn't going to be another episode, or there isn't going to be another episode or season for a very long time, years and years you might have to wait? The companionship element is also associated with the way the media makes us part of society. Here's a good example. Conversations. We call this the water cooler effect. In the office, people would go and stand by the water cooler, grab a quick drink and have a chat. Same thing at the coffee machine at work. And people are often included or not based upon what's happening in the world. And here's a good example. Lots of conversations happen based on media, based on TV shows, binging, etc. Have you watched that latest episode? And if you haven't, you're not going to be able to have that conversation. It can also sometimes put you back into or remove you from social crowds. That might have happened to you, and this again is maybe sounding a little bit weird, but this is what drives viewing figures sometimes, because popular shows are not popular because they're well produced, but because lots of other people watch it, and again others join in, almost due to the fear of missing out. Blumler and Katz argue that a third reason we watch the media we do, listen to the media we do, buy, etc., is for the sense of identity. I would argue this is possibly one of the biggest reasons audiences choose the media they do, and that actually this is happening subconsciously without us even realizing. The identification element comes from varying factors: age, gender, background, religion, likes, dislikes, and allows the audience to relate to similar themes. Themes either in the characters themselves or in the storylines themselves. And these themes or traits or experiences are often placed into the narrative on purpose by the writers, the producers, for this very reason. So for example, I personally find it easy to identify with male characters on screen as a male myself, particularly those who have a brother or a sister. Again, I have these in real life. I might identify with a British character, because again, I am, or I can identify with a character in a story who is very tall, or loves to swim, or any other preference that I have. If I see that in a text, in a narrative, or in a character, I can identify with it. I do it, I love it, I know of it, and the same thing's happening in that text, I can relate to it. It could be absolutely anything as a theme that we could relate to. And again, they're purposely placed, don't forget. Script writers are very clever. Producers are very, very clever. These are produced products. What we're seeing on screen, films, TV, etc., they're not happy accidents. They are scripted. Sometimes, unfortunately, the themes that are used in our text, in our TV shows, and we've seen a lot of this, particularly in the last 5 to 7 years, can be quite negative, or they are particularly a tougher issue to discuss. For example, loss of loved ones. How often do we see this in film or TV programs like soaps or dramas? Think EastEnders. We see disputes between family members. We see financial trouble as a theme for characters to deal with. Abuse maybe, or neglect. Themes of grief or struggling that characters are dealing with and having to cope with. And again, we as the audience might therefore then be interested to watch what happens because we've experienced the same thing. And that's really powerful. If we can get our audience to identify, even as a wish or hope I can type way of thinking, I would like to be that one day type attitude, very common again for young people, that's how they're often drawn into storylines, then the audience will probably come back to our TV show. They'll watch the next episode, they'll buy the subscription to the new series, etc., etc. It's that longevity factor. Can we get the audience to keep coming back to our product? And this is huge for TV shows. You take anything, Game of Thrones, The Big Bang Theory, whatever it is, they know they have competing shows. There are other options that the audience could choose, but we need to make sure that they come back to us. So getting that sense of identity to make it authentic and relatable could be, again, a huge driving force for why audiences remain loyal to certain shows. So we watch the shows we do, listen to the music we do, like the artists, follow, like, share, because we can identify with them. It's an attachment, and almost once that bond has been made, it's sometimes difficult to break that, especially again if it's regarding a character from a long-standing TV show which has been going on and you've been building a relationship with that character for a long time. And you might be thinking, this sounds really weird, does this really happen? But of course, you might be one of these types of audiences where you've become die-hard, you've become a fanboy or girl, and you are quite specific about the shows you watch and the actors you follow because you've kind of created that bond with them over time. Even though it's quite old, take for example, those who loved the very famous character from Friends, Rachel. Every episode, audiences had followed her journey, episode by episode, for 10 years. 10 years of an audience's life, they're continuing to watch a show and identify with, perhaps, and follow a character. There's that long period of time that I mentioned before, 10 years, it's an awful long time. And that sense of attachment, almost getting to know them. Even though Rachel is a fictional character, the audience would possibly have that, well, I know how Rachel would respond. I know how Rachel would feel in that situation. I've seen it before in other episodes. No doubt those audiences were perhaps female. They were possibly of a similar age to the character of Rachel. They also possibly worked in a city environment so they could identify with her character. Maybe the audience also rented an apartment. They experienced relationship issues. Again, all themes of the character of Rachel. The audience would have watched how Rachel's character dealt with themes over 10 years, and the audience became very close. They became almost thinking of Rachel as an answer, a source of wisdom for them. It might be argued that some audiences turn to help pages in magazines for answers. Some of us turn to Google. And some of us possibly have even found wisdom from the characters we've loved and identified with for many, many years. Being able to identify with or relate to something or someone is a huge driving force for most audiences. It makes the experience much more real, much more authentic. Vloggers and bloggers are a great example perhaps of this. How many people do you know who follow a blogger almost religiously? They check out their videos, their thoughts or their take on life, and they get wisdom from them, even maybe over health professionals, and I don't question it. But couldn't it not be argued that a vlogger is far easier to identify with than the alternatives available? These vloggers share their lives with us. They're just like us, aren't they? Zoella is a great example here, the kind of the girl next door type, who's become huge in providing life advice, reviews, and thoughts on everyday things, from what to buy, from holidays to interior design and everything in between, but in a very chatty, relatable way, especially for young female audiences. Think about the media you choose. Are you basing it on something or someone you can relate to? Is there a theme that you can identify with? Is that why you prefer that media perhaps? Lastly, Blumler and Katz argued that audiences will simply watch media, their fourth need, because of entertainment. It provides almost escapism, the simple element of making us feel good, often comedic. It's a lighter take on things, and it helps us escape from what's happening around us, the real world. We might choose to watch a certain comedian for this reason, or a comedy film after a hard day at work. Entertainment is certainly a big reason why audiences sometimes choose certain media over others. They simply want a lighter version of reality. They want to be made to laugh. They need a little bit of relief. So hopefully this will help you in remembering those four main parts of the theory: information, companionship, identification, and entertainment. If a media product can offer all four of these needs, does it make it a better product, a better sellable product, a longer lasting product? The news is often purely informational, and for example, there is little to identify with, depending on the stories, and often limited entertainment value, but it's still watched by millions every day. How true is Blumner and Katz' uses and gratifications theory true to your media consumption? For what reason or need are you preferring that media text? Understanding this theory again helps you understand audience habits, and again how certain media is produced and why. If a show or a computer game or whatever media can meet more than one of those needs, for most audiences it's going to have a huge longevity which will keep it going for many, many years to come. Every company's dream. Guys, I hope it's been useful to look at the uses and gratifications theory, think about how media products are produced, and also the habits of audiences. Thanks for subscribing and sharing the content. Feel free to continue to send comments and questions, and until next time, take care and stay safe. See you soon.